And I'm sure you're asked this all the time, so am I. Maybe we give different answers. Do you think that this can be done without psychedelics fast enough to have an impact on the global situation?
I can conceive that it could be, yeah. You asked, do I think? I don't really have an opinion whether it will or won't, but I could see it go either way. Well, I mean, like John Seed said to me, it's too late as far as the rainforest is concerned. He says the inertia is too great in the whole system. It's too late. So I said, okay, John. I mean, it was the first time somebody said it to me just like that. He said, it would take a miracle. I said, oh. That threw me back on whatever that was. And then he said, but after all, he said, we came up out of the ocean, came onto land. He said, we have quite a lineage of miracles. I wouldn't underestimate it. That was a nice one.
Well, so my question to you is, are psychedelics a miracle?
Psychedelics are a miracle, yes. They may not be the only miracle.
Are they the miracle we need?
I don't know that. I don't know that. I think they may have already done what they were to do.
Really? That's interesting.
I think
I've never heard anybody
I think
say
what is done is so much more powerful than anybody yet recognizes. See, I see all this destruction is just the process of transformation. The question is whether we'll keep it together in the process of transformation. And that's why all I'm interested in doing is becoming a person and helping others become a person who, in the process of the dramatic stuff, will keep some equanimity and there's some love and some presence in that process. But psychedelics may play a role in that. So you're right, that comes back to your question.
As the time clocks about the environment run on, how do we get a sense of the catastrophic implications? How does humanity begin to sense what's going on?
Yeah, well, that's the fundamental question, isn't it? Because if we were able to fully acknowledge what was happening, then surely we would have the necessary will to prevent it from happening, that the technology certainly exists, and that there's, even with existing technology, there'd be nothing standing in our way of living sustainably on the planet. We know how to grow food properly, we know how to control population, we know all of these things, but the will doesn't exist because of this, because the penny hasn't dropped, and we don't really believe that this is happening to us yet.
How do we come to really believe it? Will it take incredible trauma, crisis, to awaken that consciousness?
I think the problem with trauma is that at the moment things seem so precarious for the Earth that if the traumas that we've already had aren't sufficient, then I'm afraid that any trauma that would be sufficient would also be lethal. That, for instance, the Director General of the United Nations Environment Programme, Dr. Mustafa Talba, says that at the current rate of destruction we face by the turn of this century an environmental catastrophe as complete and as and as irreversible as any nuclear holocaust. And this is echoed by many scientists. So if this is true, that in the next 10 years or so this will take place, it's hard to imagine any trauma sufficient to turn that huge, the huge inertia of this whole way of being around that wouldn't also just be a death blow to the planet. In the end, nothing but a miracle would be of any use at this time. I mean, when you look at the rate of destruction, whether it's of the rainforests or the ozone layer, the climate, all of these things that are happening. And if you were to multiply all of the efforts of conservationists by a factor of 10 or even 100, it wouldn't be enough. So that there's nothing on the horizon that can help us, And so then you think, well, what kind of a miracle would that be? Well, it'd be a very simple one, really. All that it would need would be for human beings to wake up one day different than they were the day before, and realising that this is the end unless we make these changes, and then deciding to make the change. So that doesn't seem like a very likely thing to happen. But on the other hand, the whole road that we've travelled is so littered with miracles that it's only our you know, strange kind of modern psyche that refuses to see it. I mean, the miracle of being descended from a fish that chose to leave the water and walk on the land. Well, you know, anyone with a pedigree like that, you know, you can't lose hope, that's all. For me, the ritual of non-violent direct action in defence of nature, which I didn't see as being a ritual at the beginning, but when I think about it now, it actually seems to me to be a ritual activity to go to that place where humankind meets wild nature, that line where nature is being bulldozed and ploughed and pushed back, and to stand right on that line, but not looking at nature with the eye to conquest, but looking back as part of nature, saying no to this whole thing. That was really probably the biggest turning point of my life was the first time that I was involved in something like that. And the reason that I believe this to be ritual is that I can't really take it seriously now as on its own terms, that you can't save a forest, you can't save a tree. That today, with the ozone layer disappearing, with the atmosphere changing, with global warming, all the forests, all the trees are going to be gone. The ones that you saved in 1979 or 1989 are going to go along with everything else. Unless you can save the whole thing, you can't save any of the pieces. So any attempt to be saving a little piece here and a little piece there can only be seen as a kind of a prayer.
I love the image of miracle, that any moment the whole game can change. That's very exciting, that it can change that fast.
It would have to be that way because it's very difficult to see any other way that it could be. Now, whether that will happen or not is another matter, and what it depends on is another matter.
That's beyond us. We can just play our part.
But it may be that it's one of those situations that if there are 12 honest men in Sodom, the Lord will spare the city. I mean, it could be one of those situations that if, you know, like the 100th monkey or whatever it is, where if there are enough people who badly and seriously and earnestly and with their whole lives say, we've been here for 4,000 million years on this beautiful planet and we want to continue, we don't want to stop now. You know, most people just, it's too hard, you know, and so they know that it's coming to an end, but somehow there's not enough perspective. But maybe if there's enough people who say it's not too hard, we'll do whatever we have to do, then, you know, could be that that's the conditions for that miracle.